Hello everyone, it's Dr. Wolfe here, and in this video, I'm going to be modeling how we could obtain information, specifically how we could read information to comprehend it. So the article that we're going to be looking at is the negative effects of industrial agriculture and our Western diet. First thing before I want to do is just do some pre-reading strategies. So for instance, what do I know about this topic? All right. So I've heard of the Industrial Revolution before. And so maybe I have these, ideas in my head is that I know industrial a lot of times means large scale. All right. Western diet, I may not be sure what that necessarily means. Are we in the West? But I'm going to kind of look through here. This kind of confirms that this might be about a large scale, these 3 tractors in the image right here. So it seems like I might be onto something with that. If I look at some of the headings, impact on soil, I actually may not know a whole lot about soil at this point, but maybe I've heard about pesticides. And I know that just pesticides are a lot of times they're seen as harmful. So I know pesticides sometimes are seen as harmful. I'll go to the next page. It looks like we kind of have this icky pond. So maybe this has something to do with pollution. And then there's a lack of nutrition heading. And I see there's white bread versus whole grain bread. And maybe I just know from my mom because it's very rarely she'll ever buy white bread. She's always talking about whole grain bread. So I know that whole grain, I think, is healthier. All right. So there's some stuff that I already know, or at least, think I have an idea going into this article. All right. I'm still not done pre-reading yet. I want to think about, what am I wondering and predicting about this article? All right. One thing that I'm wondering are these my knowledge of these things, pesticides, pollution, correct? Is my knowledge of the topics correct? All right. Since I really may not know a whole lot of soil at this point, I might be wondering all right, how is soil involved? All right. And, I'm kind of predicting, it says negative effects, and I know pesticides are bad. So my guess is that I'm going to predict that industrial agriculture, and I might abbreviate this, industrial agriculture is harming soil. And it looks like this other thing had to do with nutrition right here. So soil and nutrition, at least that's what I'm predicting. All right. So this helps just prime my brain for the reading so I could have a better conversation in my head as I go through it. So let's do this. While reading, I'm going to first start off right here. I'm just going to write down my main notes, sketches, drawings if I want to as well. And then I'm going to try to synthesize that over here. So let's see. Industrial agriculture is the large-scale production of crops and animals, often involving chemical fertilizers on crops or the routine harmful use of antibiotics in animals. I've heard of that term before. Heavy use of pesticides and other practices that deplete the land, mistreat the animals, and increase various forms of pollution. No doubt industrial agriculture has allowed for lower food prices and large amounts of people to be fed, yet these aspects can obscure its very high health and environmental price tag. All right. So what's one strategy that I like with reading sometimes is I'll just try to summarize a section in just 2 words. All right. And it's kind of funny, when I read this, it's there's some good aspects, all right, and then there's some bad aspects, and it seems like they're going to be focusing on the bad, so I'm going to put that there, all right? So maybe my notes, I say something it looks like a positive, all right, lower prices, more people fed, but then there's some problems chem fertilizers, all right, harm animals, all right, and like just depleting the land. Okay. And then let's go to the impact on soil section. So soil is alive. That's interesting. All right. Every handful of healthy soil contains more microbes than number of people that have ever lived on Earth. That is wild. There is much organic matter in the soil that plants cannot use, but these microbes help break down this organic matter into a form that plants can use to get important elements like nitrogen and potassium. However, the use of pesticides could have a negative effect on these microbes. Okay, so the words that I got here are alive and microbes. All right. Actually, I'm going to say instead of alive, microbes, and then like harm, because it seems like the microbes are being harmed here. All right. Remember, this is tough to just come up with 2 words, but it's helpful in terms of getting the main idea. So I'm going to sketch some notes. All right. Soil, alive. All right. Let's see. Soil, alive, microbes, breakdown, plant matter. All right. Plants, it seems like plants get nitrogen and nitrogen and potassium from it. All right. However, the use of pesticides could be negative effect. So it seems like, and sometimes this is where it's helpful to write notes, is I kind of do it like a concept map where it's like pesticides and I'll draw an arrow and it seems like they're harming microbes. Okay. And so this is going to talk a little bit more about pesticides now. Technically, anything that kills a pest is a pesticide. But in general, when people use the term pesticide, they're referring to synthetically manufactured chemicals that kill organisms that feed on plants. During World War II, chemical weapons were developed by U.S. companies for the war effort. And after the war, these chemicals were repurposed as pesticides for modern industrial agriculture. A growing number of studies have linked pesticides to various health effects. Those are still hotly debated. In 2004, a review co-authored by the National Cancer Institute concluded evidence clearly suggests that there is current exposures pesticides adversely affect human health. All right, so a big thing here is like adverse, and then like kind of like synthetic, or maybe even like poison. The idea that these were used as like weapons before, even though maybe that word wasn't used. That's one that's kind of come into mind to summarize that section right there. So I'm going to take some notes here. Go back to this section. All right, pesticides. Anything that kills pests, but it looks like it's just usually talking about manufactured. All right, like weapons during World War II. That was surprising. Did not know that. Okay. And then it looks like they were repurposed. Now modern agriculture. That seems kind of scary. All right. And then I'm going to just kind of draw some arrows coming out of pesticides. So I'm even going to underline it because it seems like an important part. Like study, seems like there are adverse effects. Okay. So let's go to the next section. All right, continuing with pesticides. Pesticides kill organisms harmful to plants, but also kill the good microbes that help plants get important nutrients such as nitrogen and phosphorus. To compensate for less nutrients for the plants, farmers use more and more synthetic fertilizer each year. Unfortunately, this fertilizer also runs off into the surrounding environment and can be overkill to natural habitats. If you've ever seen lakes covered with high amounts of green algae, it's because of fertilizer runoff. So I've definitely seen this like around like the Lake County area. So it seems like that's caused by fertilizer runoff. All right. So let's see. If I were to summarize this in 2 words, I might put like compensate seemed like a big one. And then like pollute. So I'm going to write some notes on this. Let's see. Pesticides kill harmful organisms. So pesticides kill microbes All right, so there's less, it seems like from the reading, there's less nutrients for the plants. And so as a result, more fertilizer. All right. That's what farmers need to do. All right. So next section, lack of nutrition. Industrial agriculture produces mainly commodity crops such as rice, corn, and wheat. The problem with these foods is that our Western society, they are processed and refined into high calorie, low nutrition foods. So one thing, I've definitely heard this form a calorie before. It seems like usually has to do with weight. So I'm just going to circle that because I might not be exactly sure what that means. Low nutrition foods. All right, for example, the way wheat is typically processed, the vitamins, fiber, and protein in wheat seed are removed, leaving energy-dense white flour. So maybe that has to do with white bread. Although both are made from wheat, there's a big difference between the nutritional quality of Wonder Bread versus whole grain bread. Unfortunately, these processed foods are linked to healthy problems like obesity, heart, stroke, and some cancers. All right. So it seems like this is because the industrial agriculture produces these things, and then there's these other things that happen that cause these things to be less healthy, but I think that's how they're linking it to agriculture. To me, I'm just gonna kind of cheat with my words. I'm gonna use a symbol, so like high calorie and then low nutrition is the big thing I got here. All right. And I might say something like lack of nutrition, commodity crops, or industrial agriculture leads to commodity crops, which can lead to taking away nutrients, which seems like that could lead to less healthy food, or less healthy, and it seems like that could lead to certain diseases. All right, and then we could get to our summary right here. Producing large quantities of food through industrial agriculture has lowered the proportion of people suffering from hunger. However, in obtaining high yields of food, pesticides are depleting the soil of microbes, leading to higher and higher amounts of fertilizer, which can be overkill for the surrounding environment. Lastly, the way most industrialized food is processed results in high caloric, low nutrient food, which could lead to many preventable diseases. All right. So I know that took some time, but honestly, I found it really helpful to use the strategy of just writing 2 words for each section and then being able to kind of write as I was going after each section. So what I want to do now is I want to still try to make sense of this. All right? And I'm going to take the information here and I'm going to try to boil it down to some of the most important points. So I'm going to take some time to think through this. Positive, lower prices, more food, more people fed. All right. So what I'm kind of getting here is actually kind of like my words that I put here before, is that there's some good with industrial agriculture, but it seems like there's definitely this focus, good aspects, but many bad ones too. Okay. Let's see. And here we're talking about the soil killing microbes. So I'm just going to kind of summarize this as pesticides kill microbes and leading to dependence on fertilizer, which that fertilizer could actually pollute. Okay, so that helps kind of summarize this section right here. All right, and so, yep, all the way to like more fertilizer. So that was kind of nice. I was able to summarize that all there. And then I have this other section right here, industrial agriculture, commodity crops, taking away. So I kind of like that I have all the details of like how industrial agriculture is linked to disease, but that's really what this is about, it seems like, is that they're trying to make the argument that industrial agriculture has a role in like modern day diseases. Okay. So what I could do now is, now that I've read this and I've kind of made a little bit of sense here, is I want to show, all right, that post-reading, like I can recall and synthesize like my comprehension of what I just read, all right? So let's see, my main topic sentence, what I could do is I could look at any of these things to help me out, by the way. This is probably gonna be the most helpful section right here, but sometimes if this isn't enough info, I could always dip back into more of my detailed notes, all right? Now, one thing I might do though is I'm gonna go back to my pre-reading section. All right, industrial means large scale. It seems like I was kind of on the right track to that. Pesticides are seen as harmful, and it seems like that was correct. So a lot of my other question is like, is my prior knowledge correct about this? And it looks like it was. I didn't know a lot about pollution before. All right, so that kind of helped explain a little bit more about how that could, farming could be a polluting thing too. And then whole grain is healthier, and I learned a little bit more information about how that's the case, that they're taking away some of those nutrients. All right. Going back to some of my predictions, other things, how is soil involved? So I learned more about microbes there. Industrial agriculture is harming soil and nutrition. And again, I learned more about how industrial agriculture is linked to these diseases. So just heading back there, I think I think taking that time is worth it. All right. Let's work on our post-reading, all right? Kind of summarizing everything we read, all right? So if I had to put this in a topic sentence, I kind of like this one right here. And sometimes you're not going to get your topic sentence just from something here. You'll have to kind of come up with it on your own. But I think the main idea of the article is that there have been positive aspects with industrial agriculture. I'm just gonna kind of abbreviate that, but there are many negative health and environmental impacts. All right. And I am worried that my fat head of this, the pen's not going to do well for this next section. So I'm going to write a normal pen now. All right. And maybe I'll zoom in a little bit because we don't really need the article as much anymore. So if I want to summarize, I really like some of these points that I made right here. All right. Let's see. Industrial agriculture uses pesticides. And I thought it was so interesting about this World War comment, which were previously poisons. Or like weapons. So industrial uses pesticides were previously poisons, but these kill microbes, leading to a dependence on fertilizer to replace nutrients. All right, I just remember they also said it was like a growing dependence, like they're using more and more. So a growing dependence on fertilizer to replace nutrients. All right. However, these fertilizers can pollute, and specifically and overkill nearby habitats. right. Let's see if there's anything. I think overall I've kind of summarized that. And then industrial agriculture has a role in modern diseases. So I'm going to talk about that aspect. Industrial agriculture also has a negative effect on human health by producing crops where the nutrients are taken out, which can lead to modern diseases. Now, I actually want to kind of include what those are. So I don't think I wrote it in my notes, but if I go back here, oops, sorry, y'all. It looks like obesity, heart disease, and stroke. Such as obesity, heart disease, and stroke. All right. So I have successfully, all right, read my article. All right. Now, by the way, this is just a helpful tool. When you become a master at reading, like all the stuff becomes natural. When I read articles now, I'm looking at the title, I'm skimming through it. I am automatically thinking about what I know, making predictions, asking myself questions. And then as I read through, I'm kind of like stop myself after each paragraph to kind of summarize, like, all right, did I get this? And I think if we, like a good way, sometimes what I'll do is after I read something is I'll tell someone about it, right? Hey, I read this really interesting article. And by doing that, I'm kind of doing this part right here. All right. So this is our Cornell notes right here, but this is honestly mimicking a really, really natural process of how we could just read to better comprehend. Thanks for watching.